Hey, and welcome back to Chiropractically Speaking, the podcast. I am your well-adjusted host, Dr. Prathap Addageethala, or as some people call me, Dr. Pratt. So this is, as I said, episode 3, and today's topic is, drum roll please, me. All right. So you're probably wondering who this loudmouth is talking about chiropractic all the time and rubbing it in your faces. Well, the truth of the matter is, I'm hoping that talking about my experiences, sharing a little bit about my life, my background, what I've gone through to get to where I'm at now might actually shed some light on why am I so opinionated on certain things? And why does it matter what I say regarding chiropractic? So hopefully, like I said, these things will all come together today in this podcast. And I'm really glad you're joining me because it's a special one because it's all about me. All right. So let's start from the start. It was a stormy day in 1984. It was a winter day, as I recall. No, okay, I'm just kidding. That we're not going to go that far back, but we are going to go back to the point where I was starting to make decisions about what I was going to do for my profession, what was going through my mind at that time. So, we're going to go through this a bunch of times. I'm going to talk about this in my book. Not much of a subtle lead into that there, but yeah, it started around when I was about 11 years old. I actually really felt the need to become somebody in healthcare. I wanted to do something in healthcare where I was using my hands. So after a visit to the dentist, I wanted to be a dentist. There was a strong correlation between what the dentist did, how I felt about not prescribing medicine to everybody who walked through the door. It was a kind of a natural fit. Also, I had some insights about how much dentists made. There was that. On top of the pay scale and the prestige that came with becoming a dentist. In Canada, dentists make a lot, but it's also a really difficult profession to get into. So it also came with the title prefix, doctor. And for some reason, that really appealed to me. Now, that doesn't surprise many people in the Indian diaspora. As you know, many people of Indian descent are given 3 options on birth, doctor, lawyer, engineer. At least that's what it was like in my generation. I'm sure now there's tons and tons of other opportunities and people are seeing the benefits of going into software, for example. So there's tons and tons of things that have changed in terms of what employment options are available. But at that time, that seemed like something my parents would have really appreciated, us all becoming doctors. So this is the story of basically a first-generation Canadian born to immigrant parents. My folks emigrated to Canada way back in the 70s, and they've been there ever since. They've actually lived in Canada longer than they've lived in India, which makes them kind of true fishes out of water, right? They didn't really know what to expect in Canada when they picked up and left. And now whenever they come back to visit India, it's a different world that they left. So it's a very interesting situation being in that. And I can't imagine being in that same position. Although here I am in the country they left so long ago, practicing my profession, doing what I do. So it's a very interesting dynamic. A lot of people ask me lots of questions about, well, so you were born over there. What the heck are you doing over here? Most people are trying to get out of here, going over there, and you've come back here. So whenever I answer that question, it's always the first word out of my mouth is opportunity. What other place can you expect to be one of 10 of the leaders of that profession? Very few places. So when I looked at it, it had opportunity written all over it. And it was something that I really, really wanted to do. I did not want to go home and just do the regular thing. That is, I studied in New York and I went back to Toronto to practice for a bit. And, this wasn't a situation where I ever expected myself to be. So we'll get into that a little bit more organized. This is just a little mind vomit. I'll tell you about that in a bit. Okay. So again, going through schooling, I was pretty gung-ho about being a dentist. I told everybody, when you're a kid, people will come up to you and ask you, hey, what do you want to do for when you grow up? And my answer was always dentist. They're like, dentist, huh? They'd always look a little confused. Like, why is this little kid talking about being a dentist? But that was the case. And as I grew up a little bit more, the conversation started to shift. People would start to ask me, dentists have the highest suicide rate. Are you sure you want to go into this type of thing? And for me, it was never really like, yeah, okay. So 3 people committed suicide last year and one of them happened to be a dentist. That makes them one of the highest. I don't know. Again, I'm not going to go into those like dark metrics, but that being said, these were conversations that people actually wanted to have with me. They're like, you want to look in people's mouths all day? And, I'm like, somebody's got to do it, right? So I had the right idea about it. 2 things were really very clear. It was a profession that allowed me to be a doctor and it allowed me to use my hands. It wouldn't be boring. It wouldn't be pencil pushing. It wouldn't be paper pushing. It would just basically be work with my hands, which I'd like to do at the time. I was an athlete growing up. I was pretty good at school. So naturally people were like, yeah, go for it. It's a great profession. You make lots of money. So let's go. Fast forward, high school was great. I did really well. And then college hit. So college was a real eye opener because for somebody like me who was going in full head of steam, full of myself, all kinds of things, it really shook my foundation a lot. Like the first year was such I don't even know how to explain it. It was one of those really, really, really come to Jesus moments where you don't know what else to look for. I was so used to at that point getting good marks without trying too hard. And this was not that. I didn't get good marks. And I looked around and my colleagues were doing the same thing that I was. Yeah, okay, there was a bit of partying. I did go to the University of Western Ontario, Mustangs. It wasn't a situation where like partying derailed my studying. It wasn't like that at all. I just found it hard. I'd look at, if I had missed a class or I was, I needed to copy somebody's notes or I needed to look into something that had gone on. I looked at their notes compared to the ones that I had taken in previous lectures, and it was night and day different. What they were writing down, how they were organizing it, how they were assimilating that information was so different than how I had it. So I felt like my colleagues, my classmates at that time were so much better prepared to take on this course load and to work at this rate that, I don't know, maybe it was a preparation thing. I mean, no slight to the high school that I went to, but there was several people who came out of that high school and they were scholars and they did really well in university. So again, this is a personal thing. However, I just couldn't cut it. So that was a big eye opener for me. It took a long time for me to get over. And what I didn't realize was that what I didn't get accomplished in that first year would really kind of linger with me the entire time I was trying to apply for professional school, in this case, dentistry. So I'll get into that a bit later too. So I just want to kind of backtrack a little bit. A lot of times people wanted to know, well, why healthcare of all professions? Like, you're a smart kid. Like, why healthcare? Outside of the prestige and the money, what else is there? So actually, I want to take it a little further back. So I had mentioned my mom and my dad, both really, really, really hardworking people. I'm where they are. I am where I'm at right now because of my parents. I can't even, there's no hiding that. And a lot of them is like a lot of the values and the type of things related to work that they instilled in me still remain. So thanks. Anyway, that being said, mom would come home from work and she'd be, in pieces. Like, she was a early childhood educator. So her work was pretty hard with small children. She would travel up and down on the bus and she'd get back and, her muscles would be pretty stiff because, after working with kids all day long, she'd come back and she had 3 more to deal with. And she was one of those typical Indian moms who, they don't have an off button. They just keep going and going and going. Okay, this needs to be fixed and that needs to be changed and that needs to be cleaned. So it was always an ongoing thing. So her muscles were super tight. And, from time to time, she'd be like, hey, can you come over here? Can you look at this for me? And I would dig my elbow into a muscle here. I would massage something over there. And she'd always be like, oh, I feel so much better after that. So much so that she would say, Prathap, you have magical hands. You have healing hands. And I didn't take much of it. I was just like, yeah, okay, mom, sure. And I was happy to help. She would, sometimes she'd even ask relatives when they come over to the house, like, hey, Meena, come here. You should get him to, do something for your shoulder. And that's what it became. It was really cool. So we established this thing where it meant something to me to be able to contribute to their health. It meant something to me that I was able to relieve her of pain, even temporarily. So that for me was a big foundational step. All of the things along the way she had mentioned to me were simple, like, you should choose something where you can help older people. You should choose something where your practice is valuable. You should be in a place where people will look at you and say, you're contributing positively to our society, that type of thing. So those types of things stayed with me. Okay. So I got a bit of background about what my parents gave me. I got a bit of background about like where I was mentally as a kid and through high school and my struggles in university. So progressing through the program, I was enrolled in Bachelor's of Science. It was an honors biology degree. So, and that was again at the University of Western Ontario, which was in London, Ontario in Canada. And, I started with, at the bottom and I worked my way to the top. So at the end of my program, I was able to get onto the Dean's List, which is for, good academic performance. And through that experience, I became really close with a lot of my classmates. And one of them, and I will tell you what his name is, Dr. Benjamin Bluestein. All right. So this guy was a class act. So we all kind of had similar ideas. We all had ideas about dentistry. There was a cluster of us that, all right, we'll go to dental school. We all wrote the exams together and things. I don't think any of us actually became dentists, although two of them became doctors. So there's that, medical doctors. So Ben was kind of influential in my decision-making because he said, hey, Pratt, why don't you apply for chiropractic college? And I said, well, why would I do that? And he goes, well, you just never know. You may get in, or even if you don't get in, what's the big deal? Just apply. It's an option for you. And this is in my 4th year. So I looked at him a little like, I'd rather stick to my guns and keep applying for dentistry. I'd rather stick to my guns and apply for dentistry. He said, just apply, man, see what happens. And so I did. I applied to a college, which was close by the house, but it wasn't in Toronto where my folks were. It was in New York. It was upstate New York Chiropractic College, which is now known as the Northeast College of Health Sciences. So I applied, and within a few days, I got a response. You got it? And I was like, that's it. I got it. But they said, yes, pending an interview. So this is the truth. Okay. I'm going to look into the camera and I'm going to tell you the truth. I, at that point, had never been to a chiropractor. I'd never even gone with a friend. I'd never shadowed a chiropractor. I didn't really even know what chiropractors did. Of course, before the interview, I did a little bit of reading and whatnot, and I got a general sense of it. But how do you really explain what chiropractic is? That would have to be another episode in the future. Okay. So anyway, it asked me to come down to the campus to do a tour and interview and see if I was chiropractor material. And I said I couldn't do that. I was writing final exams and it just wasn't going to happen. So they got me to do a phone interview with another influential person, Dr. Ventimiglia. Dr. Ventimiglia was a well-known chiropractor in the New York, New Jersey area, and he played a role with the admissions department at NYCC. So we got on a call, we had a great talk, and he came to understand that I was very new to chiropractic and he didn't really know why I was applying to chiropractic school, but he was still very encouraging. He said, you probably want to go ahead and shadow a chiropractor so you have an idea of what we're going to do, but do that at least. And then you can apply if you need to. And I said, okay, sure. The application's already in, but it's all depending on you. Hopefully this interview has gone well, but I'll do my best to go and shadow a chiropractor. And he finished my interview, and I'll never forget this. He finished our interview by saying, okay, the game is afoot. And I don't know why that stuck with me. It was just such a simple thing, but it just, I don't know, it really stuck in my mind. So again, fast forward a couple of weeks, and I got a response from the college saying that the interview was successful and they were issuing me an acceptance to New York Chiropractic College, which I promptly declined. I wasn't ready to go. I still wanted to be a dentist. I still wanted to try. I still wanted to give my best effort at doing dental school. So during my undergrad, I took on various random jobs. So one of them was with a marketing company, and it was kind of guerrilla marketing. It was a little embarrassing. Most people would turn down jobs like that now, but I needed to pay the bills. So this was one of the ways, and it wasn't so bad. So they had me in one of these large big box stores, and I was demonstrating a new vacuum at that time called Dyson. That was all new at that time. And it was kind of fun because they gave me some fun ways to demonstrate the vacuum. And an attractive lady walked by, and I said, hey, vacuum? And she was kind of like, she looked at me, she looked me up, and actually gave me a sarcastic smile. And she's like, well, why would you assume that I do the vacuuming around my house? And I was like, okay, well, then it'll be a great gift for your husband. And she started laughing. That was our icebreaker. And so she kind of walked over, she asked me some questions, and we were just generally chit-chatting. And she asked what I was doing, and I told her very proudly that I was going to be a dentist someday, and I was studying to be a dentist. And she kind of mulled that over, and she said to me, well, do this for me. Come to my office someday, and I'll tell you 10 reasons why chiropractic is better than dentistry. And I took her card, and of course I never went. Dr. Cecile Thackeray had planted that seed in my mind at that point. I didn't follow up on it, but I'd always wondered what she meant by that. So I took an extra year of undergrad. I'd already gotten my degree, took an extra year of undergrad, and nothing happened. I worked for a year and nothing happened. My folks were getting a little bit nervous. They were kind of like, hey, man, you're not doing a whole lot. What are you going to do now? And I thought. So I had applied to different programs at this point. I worked at a laser eye surgery place, so I thought optometry would be a good option. I volunteered with the physio department in a rehabilitation hospital, and that didn't really lead anywhere. So I was kind of circling my base, and finally, the idea of going to chiropractic college repopulated into my mind. So I contacted the school, and they accepted my admission once more. My career at NYCC was awesome. I loved every moment of it. There were some ups and downs for sure. It was challenging in many ways. It was cold in many ways, but the school is a really engaging environment. I was able to find my path, and I was able to take on a couple of leadership roles. I did a good amount of work study. I was able to work in the admissions department and in the alumni relations department. It was interesting. So I had a nice varied experience. And to top it all off, I won Student of the Year in my final semester, which was kind of really cool. I couldn't attend that ceremony to win that award because I was writing an exam in Canada for my licensure. So that was that. Fast forward again. I want, you probably are fast forwarding through this podcast, but it's one of those situations like, so completed the degree, got my licensure in Canada. I had options. Okay. I could have gone to the States and worked there. I could have come back to Canada at any time, but there was this kind of very, very wiggly mindworm in my mind that was starting a practice in India. At that time, I knew that there were so few people working in India. I think there was 4 at the time that I had been considering this. And it just kind of became this, I don't know, it really, really, really appealed to me. So while again, in my final year, my final semester of college, I got a chance to sit down and talk to one of the business professors at the college on a week-to-week basis. It was a program in the college called Backpack to Briefcase. So it was kind of transitioning yourself from a student all the way to a professional. So this advisor, her name is Dr. Teresa Hoban. She was really, really influential as well in my pathway. So when discussing all my different options with her, the States, going back to Canada, or this mystical place called India, she would always say, you know what? Have you ever noticed how your eyes kind of get wide and you start to become really you talk like this and you're going really fast because you're super excited about one of these options? And I'm like, no, I've never noticed that. And she says, you need to go there because you never want to look back and say, woulda, shoulda, coulda. You don't want to have that regret. And of course, I went back to Canada. So each time I had this opportunity to take a step forward, I thought about it a little bit more. And of course, in due course, it always doubles back. The gut feeling never really goes away. So I'm not going to lie. My first couple of years here in India were not easy. I started way back in 2014. I took a pretty big gamble by coming over here, and it was difficult. I had to carry a portable bag with my chiropractic table across busy intersections. I was spending a couple of hours in each clinic each week. It wasn't easy. It was hard to get customers. It was hard to get clients. It was hard to build a reputation. So it came to a point where I was ready to quit. I was 6 months in. I wasn't seeing that many people. I wasn't getting paid that much. Bills were looming over my head, and it was getting a bit desperate. At the time, my now wife, Nandini, she was a voice of reason for me. She told me, you know what? Give yourself 6 more months. Try for a whole year. And if it doesn't work out, you tried. You can go back happy without regrets. So I saw some sound logic in that. And I thought that it would be a good idea to go through with it. And that's when things started to change. So I credit her all the time. She blushes and she says, nah, man, it's all you. But she was that person at that time. She told me the right thing at the right time, and it made a huge difference. So right after that, things started to change. I got in touch with a new swanky gym that had just opened in Indiranagar called The Tribe. And I met this fantastic person named Shwetambri Shetty and her partner Sudeep Kulkarni, and they were really welcoming. They allowed me to get in, practice at The Tribe, which was a really kind of a happening place. People got to see me, people got to know me. I got myself a Practo account, which for the people who don't know what Practo is, was kind of an online software, EHR, booking and scheduling software all rolled into one. And people could book from the listing that I put onto Practo. And Practo was also growing at that time. So that was a good move. And then I hired my first employee, Prem Kumar. Prem is still with me today. He is still a very essential part of my practice. So shout out to Prem. And, things grew hand over fist after that. 2016, I opened Atlas Chiropractic and Wellness. I took a big gamble by opening a large space, and people started to come in, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And now we're at 5 clinics and well over 30 employees. It's kind of a dream come true. But I think that the heart of this particular dialogue is the fact that your gut instincts are important and you should try to listen to them. B, things are hard. Things do not get easy and nothing is handed to you. You do have to push through. And C, always remember where you came from. And if you can stay true to that and make a huge difference in people's lives around you while remaining true to yourself, that's what true happiness is. It's not a shiny red Ferrari, but it is freedom. So there are those things. I'm really happy to share a lot of my background with you. I'm really happy to share a lot of my insights and all the things that may be going through my mind at any given time. If you have more questions for me about what I do, how I do it, where I come from, or anything you want to know, hit me up in the comments below. I'd be happy to share them with you because, hey, this is my podcast. You can talk to me about whatever you want. So 7 amazing years so far, 5 locations, 3 in Bangalore, 1 in Chennai, 1 in Hyderabad, 15,000 patients and counting. And all of you guys are important to me. All of you guys have led me to get to where I'm at right now. And there's still more to go. We have so many people to talk to about what chiropractic is, what it's not, how it can help. And educating you guys is the whole purpose of this podcast. And if you love the content, if something I said has spoken to you, or you want to share this information with somebody you know, love, care about, definitely share, like, subscribe, and leave us a rating if you can. Wherever you get your podcast, this is something that I wish for all of you guys to help us out with so that we can spread the news and the information about chiropractic and all of those healthcare bits to everybody around. Now, I am Dr. Prathap Addageethala. I am your host of Chiropractically Speaking, the podcast, and I am out of here.